Hello and welcome to another episode of EdgeCraft. I am your host, Matt, and it is great to see you today. So, for today's episode, you may notice that I've built up our cactus farm just a little bit. I've added a second layer. However, I ran out of glass. Because I like to wrap the outside of this in glass, and because the inside requires so many glass panes and the outside has so much glass, I just don't have any left. I mean, I've got a little bit, like 6 there and 30 panes there, but just not a lot. This thing is producing great, though. I mean, check out how much cactus I've got already. That's awesome, but I need more. I need lots more glass. I also need glass for the thing that I want to do today. I want to create a kelp farm. Yeah, a kelp farm. You heard me right. And I need a kelp farm because I need to make dried kelp blocks to run furnaces. So I'm going to go off to the desert, and I think I'm going to go back way over there where I was before and see if I can get a bunch of sand. I'm not going to show that on the camera because I don't think you want to see me run all the way out there again just to get some sand. But I will be back and we will begin work on a kelp farm. Alright, see you soon. Alright, that was a pretty successful little trip. I got a full inventory pretty much full of sand and randomly 2 sandstone. So I'm going to smelt this up into glass. I'm also going to get the materials ready to build our kelp farm, and I will be back in just a second. Okay, so we are ready. I've got a bunch of dirt blocks, I've got water, I've got tons of furnaces, redstone, pistons, observers, hoppers, chests, and some glass, which is everything I need except for the kelp. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I forgot the kelp. So anyway, what we're going to be doing while I go and run to get that kelp real fast is we are going to be building basically another version of this sugarcane farm. See how the sugarcane, when it grows up to the observer sees it, knocks the piston, or activates the piston I should say, to knock off the sugarcane. Well, we're going to be doing basically the exact same thing, just with kelp. And I don't need a lot of kelp to get things started. 64 is way more than enough. I probably only need about 8. Because we're going to be making it about this same length. This is, I don't know, 8 long. How long is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus another 7. Yeah, so that's 15 long. We're going to be close to that, actually, because kelp does not sink or go down a water stream. It's going to actually float up, and it has to be placed in water. So this design is going to look a little bit different, but that's okay. Okay, so while we're building this kelp farm, I figured we would go into not a super fast time mode, but a fast time mode. Just so that you can kind of pay attention and see how I'm building the farm, but we can do a Bible story kind of at the same time. So it's just double speed, and you can see how I'm placing the blocks and things like that, but I didn't think you'd want to listen to me ramble on about where the redstone goes and things like that. So I thought we would move forward from the story of Joseph, which we started a few episodes ago, and kind of go into Exodus. And Exodus is when the Israelites leave Egypt. So you remember from the story of Joseph that Joseph came to Egypt. He saved all of Egypt with his wisdom and teaching the Egyptians to store their grain for the famine and all of these things. And Joseph's whole family came to live with him. Well, now, basically, his family came to live with him, but they've all passed away now. They've died. They've gotten old. Joseph lived to an age of 110, but it's past that. And the Israelites that have grown out of Joseph's family and his brother's family, they've grown to be quite a lot of people. And so that's at the beginning of Exodus chapter 1. And we're going to start in verse 6, actually. So here we go. Now Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died, but the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful. They multiplied greatly, increased in numbers, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. Then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, came to power in Egypt. "Look," he said to his people, The Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous, and if war breaks out, will join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country." So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. They made their lives bitter with harsh labor in brick and mortar and with all kinds of work in the fields. In all their harsh labor, the Egyptians worked them ruthlessly. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, "When you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth, on the delivery stool, if you see that the baby is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, let her live." The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, "Why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live?" The midwives answered Pharaoh, "Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive." So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people: "Every Hebrew boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live." It's pretty crazy. I mean, basically, Pharaoh's trying to wipe out the Israelites by killing all the boys. Not good. Now, a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman, and she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. Her sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Now, isn't this interesting? Basically, all the boys in Egypt, all the Hebrew boys, were sentenced to death. If you were born and you were a boy, you were going to die. So Moses' mother hides him for 3 months. Then when she realizes she can't hide him anymore, she puts him in a basket, puts him in the river, right where Pharaoh's daughter is going to be bathing later that day. Pharaoh's daughter sees the baby, says, "Oh," falls in love with the baby, loves it. Oh, it's fantastic. But Pharaoh's daughter she's a princess. She's like a queen. She doesn't know how to raise a baby. She's not taking care of things. So she's like, Hebrew slave girl, are there any Hebrew women that can take care of this?" "Oh, I know just the one, Your Majesty." And she goes and gets Moses' mother. So Moses' mother actually gets paid by the princess of Egypt to take care of her own child. Now the catch is that when the baby grows up and becomes a young man, well, he goes to live in the palace, and so he doesn't get to see his mom anymore. He becomes kind of the princess's son. But let's continue on with the story. One day, after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Looking this way and that and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. The next day he went out and saw 2 Hebrews fighting. He asked the one in the wrong, "Why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew?" The man said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid and thought, "What I did must have become known." When Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. Now a priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water and fill the troughs to water their father's flock. Some shepherds came along and drove them away, but Moses got up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. When the girls returned to Reuel, their father, he asked them, "Why have you returned so early today?" They answered, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." "And where is he?" Reuel asked his daughters. "Why did you leave him? Invite him, and to have something to eat." Moses agreed to stay with the man, who gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses in marriage. Zipporah gave birth to a son, and Moses named him Gershom, saying, "I have become a foreigner in a foreign land." During that long period, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned about them. So let's see what God does about this. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, "I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up." When the Lord saw that he had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, "Moses, Moses." And Moses said, "Here I am." "Do not come any closer," God said. "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Then he said, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, "I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land into good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." Wow, pretty intense. Moses sees this burning bush, goes over to investigate. God starts speaking to him and basically tells him that, "Listen, my people are being oppressed. I'm going to save them." This is incredible. Now, to hear Moses' role in all this, we're going to have to wait till next time. But so far, it's a pretty good story. We'll have to see how this develops. But now, let's get back to the farm because I think it's finished. Okay, so there we go. We've got a completed farm setup. This is going to continue to produce kelp. And now let me explain the way it's going to work. So the kelp along the bottom here is going to keep on growing. And after it hits 3 high, if any of them hit 3 high, then the observers see it and the pistons shoot out and they hit all of the kelp up into the water stream. Now those then float up to the top where they go for a little ride into this hopper system. Now it's going to take a while for these hoppers to fill up, but eventually these hoppers will fill up, and they're already starting to do that, you'll see. And when they fill up, they will be smelting the kelp into dried kelp, which will go down here into these chests. Now my job is to take the dried kelp, turn it into with a crafting table into dried kelp blocks to use that for the fuel. I don't need a fuel delivery system really, because I can just put those in by hand. And for the beginning, I'm going to have to use probably coal to run these furnaces, because I don't have any dried kelp blocks. And this is going to take a while to produce. Now you may be thinking to yourself, Matt, I'm a little confused. Why did you build a kelp farm? Why do we need a kelp farm? Well, we need a kelp farm for a couple of reasons. One, I like to have lots of kelp. Two, it makes really, really great fuel. But three, it's for our super secret project. We need lots of dried kelp. And we need lots of cactus. And if we've got those two things taken care of, then we've got our amazing machine ready to go. And I can't tell you what the amazing machine is yet, because it's a surprise. I mean, it's a surprise. I can't tell you. I just can't tell you. I want to, but I can't. You know, I'd really love to increase the efficiency of this, but I don't know if I can. I wonder if it's possible to like extend this down farther. I bet you I could. I probably could extend it down as far as I want to, as long as I've got hoppers. Anyway, that's something I can do off camera if I want to make this bigger or something like that. But that's going to be the end of the episode for today. So let me just, right there. Yay. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed making it, and I will talk to you guys later. God bless. Bye.